Anna Kasparian, the host and producer of the popular progressive show The Young Turks, recently said she left the Democratic Party for the craziest reason. I'm not even sure I can repeat this on YouTube. First, I'm Hannah Cox with Ace Politics. Welcome to my channel where I bring you my politically homeless takes on politics and culture. Before we dive in today, make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and of course, ring that notification bell so you never miss one of my episodes. So recently, Anna joined Jillian Michaels on her show for an interview where the two women discussed their experiences as former California Democrats who have thrown in the towel on the party due to the extremism they've experienced, both as a result of Democratic policies and from other Democrats themselves. According to Anna, her wake-up call came after she was molested by a homeless man with an erection while trying to walk her dog. And then, because it does get worse somehow, and then was labeled a racist by other Democrats for speaking out about it. You have to watch this clip.
In 2022, it was around March. I was walking my dog. It was not quite dark yet, but the sun was setting. As I'm walking my dog, I see these two guys that were just kind of like moving around weirdly. You know, they seemed kind of manic and their clothes were tattered. So I knew that they were probably homeless. And I also knew that they're probably on something just based on like the twitchy way they were acting. But living in LA, I mean, there's homeless people everywhere, right? So I've never had problems. I didn't think anything of it. But as I was bending down to pick up my dog's mess, one of the guys like grabs me by my hips and he had an erection.
Oh God.
And just starts like humping me. And I didn't know what to do. Like I was terrified. I didn't have a weapon on me.
Yep.
Like I had no way of defending myself. I didn't know how far it was going to go because it's two guys. I'm by myself with my little dog. It was one of the most terrifying things ever because I'm pretty good at defending myself. In that moment, I just knew there was no option.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And luckily, he stopped and they just laughed at me and walked away as they were laughing at me. And so there was the fear and then the humiliation and weirdly shame. Like I felt ashamed for some reason. And it was awful. And it was really taking a toll on my mental health because I have to walk my dog, right? So at least 2 or 3 times a day, I'm going outside kind of scared. And so I opened up about this on the show, not really thinking much of it. And before I know it, I'm starting to get these messages and it's like really, really harsh stuff. And it's about how you are painting a picture of the homeless community. You know, how could you be like this? You know, these are your unhoused neighbors and they need help. A few people accused me of being racist when I had never disclosed the race of the individuals who did this to me. And in fact, they were white. And so like when they started accusing me of being racist, I'm like, wait a minute. Why are you assuming that the people who did this?
Of course.
Yeah, like I think you might have a problem here.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that woke me up. That woke me up because I'm like, oh my God.
They eat their...
So I guess the first thing I want to say to Anna and anyone else feeling as she does is welcome to our politically homeless encampment. We're popping up new tents every day, it seems like. Fun fact, did you know that none of the above actually won the popular vote in 2016 and tied for the winner of the popular vote in 2020. Not only that, but according to Gallup, 43% of Americans now identify as independents, while a record low of 27% identify as Democrats or 27% identify as Republicans. And honestly, it is not at all hard to see why. Both major parties have completely lost their marbles. I love when Jillian Michaels says that the left eats their own at the end of this interview because that is precisely what they do. For the record, according to her own Wikipedia, Anna has been an outspoken advocate for criminal justice reform and a critic of for-profit prisons, calling them hideous institutions. She's argued that these institutions create a financial incentive to keep more people in prison for longer periods of time, rather than working to rehabilitate and reintegrate them into society. And she's also pointed out that these prisons often provide substandard conditions and inadequate services and may be less accountable to the public than government-run facilities. The page also notes that she believes everyone should have access to decent, safe, and affordable housing. So this is not some anti-human, racist, lock them all up, I'll be the one to hit the button on the electric chair, knuckle dragging Bubba, okay? I know those people. I live in the South. I'm surrounded by them, actually. This is someone who has advocated for criminal justice reform and even providing houses for the homeless. So I would say her heart is in the right place, even though many of her policies may have not always been, because I would actually argue that progressive policies often create homelessness epidemics. But regardless, she got bullied by her own camp because the Democratic Party has been taken over by fringe, stunted adults with childlike mentalities. They not only eat their own, they are willing to literally sacrifice their bodies and their homes on the altar of their failing ideology, even as its impacts are literally destroying their cities around them. They are like the emperor with no clothes, cutting off the heads of people who dare to tell them that they're naked and embarrassing themselves, rather than accept the truth that their ideas have failed and they don't work, and then picking up new ones. I've said this for some time, and I think this is fundamentally true. I don't think you can call yourself a bleeding heart. I don't think you can really be kind and compassionate if you haven't taken the time to truly understand economic realities and the policies that will meaningfully help the people you claim to care about. Because it's not socialist communist crap, right? Under this umbrella of progressivism. And it isn't hard to know that. You have the internet at the tip of your fingers, okay? The data is conclusive on this. These ideas don't work. They've never worked. They always harm the very people they claim to help. And yet you can't reason with the people who are stuck in this tribal mentality. They have earmuffs on and they are furious at anyone who tries to lift them off and scream the truth into their ears. You are hurting people with your bad ideas. And that's what Anna experienced. She tried to talk about this real world antidote that happened to her, largely as a result down the line of very bad policies that have been enacted by Democrats in California over the past couple of decades. And she basically got canceled by her own camp for trying to do so. But what she is essentially arguing is the truth, okay? I agree with her on a lot of these policies when it pertains to criminal justice reform. My background started off largely in criminal justice reform, first at the state level in Tennessee, and then at the national level, where I overturned the death penalty in 3 states. I am a huge advocate of criminal justice reform, and I want big structural reform. I want to raise the thing to the ground and rebuild it because it's trash. But I don't want to raise it to the ground and have no prisons and leave it there, which is what some of these Looney Tunes on the left genuinely want. Criminal justice reform needs to be focused on core areas like getting innocent and nonviolent people out, ensuring that prisons are focused on effective rehabilitation approaches, since most people in them will eventually come back out, ensuring that reentry policies on the books aren't unhinged when they come out and set them up for success, which, by the way, is often not the case. And I would say focusing the system's responses on approaches that use our resources smartly, that truly go and nip violent crime in the bud, that are constitutional and ethical, and that, most importantly, do not grow the government. And trust me, to do the amount of work that I just listed there is a huge lift. We need both left and right and independents on this front to get it done. But what it doesn't mean is that we let violent criminals run rampant in our cities, carry out further harm, or wreak terror on the law-abiding taxpayers, which is exactly what's been happening in many blue cities. And it's what Anna is describing here. And I recently had my own very similar terrifying experience in New York City last month. I was there for a few meetings and to do some media appearances. And I lived in New York City for 6 months, by the way, so I know the city pretty well. And I always stay somewhat close to the areas where I'm going to be doing appearances so that I can walk and save money. And I just actually like getting to walk. So I live in Atlanta and we don't even have sidewalks. So all of that to say, I was walking from my hotel to the Fox News studios for an interview. It was all of maybe 8 blocks. Okay. It was a nice day. I was on the phone with my husband. And as I was walking, I had something happen that all women have happened, where a man began following me and trying to talk to me and heckle at me. And I largely ignored him because this happens all the time. And most of the time, if you just ignore them and keep walking, they go away because they're just trying to get money. I fortunately have only had a handful of times where they don't just give up and go away when you cross the street and keep walking. But this turned out to be one of them. He kept following me. He was getting angrier and angrier. And I am no like wilting violet. I will absolutely come back. I'll talk trash. I'll get aggressive. And that is usually enough to get rid of them if just walking away doesn't do the trick. But this time, it wasn't. And because I was not giving up and giving in to him, he was getting madder. He definitely seemed to be on drugs. He definitely seemed to be homeless. He didn't seem to be all there. And there's a calculation you have to make in those kinds of moments of, do you continue to escalate and become more aggressive with them, which could work? Or do you not, because they're crazy and unhinged, and you, by the way, have no ability to actually defend yourself in this kind of circumstance, and you don't know how they're going to react to you. And so what I did is I darted into the first door I saw to get into a business to get away from him, thinking surely that would stop him, because most businesses will kick you out if you are a homeless person harassing their customers. But he didn't care. He followed me into the store. And that's when I really started to panic, because I didn't know what I was going to do. A lot of stores don't have that many employees around anymore. Who's to say those employees are even going to insert themselves into the situation and do anything for you? I, by the grace of God, walked into a grocery store that happened to have armed security there. Praise God. I don't know what I would have done if it had just been like rank and file cashiers. There was nobody else to help me. And so, because the man was there, the security officer was there, I was able to go up to him, told him what was happening. The man was not leaving. He was continuing to try to follow me around the store, and he was not going to go away. And it took 2 security guards to go over and manhandle him out in about 5 more minutes to get him to give up and leave. And then I had to have the security guard go and put me in a cab. It was terrifying. It's a terrifying experience to have as a woman, no matter what, but particularly in a place like New York City or California, where, by the way, you can't even have a gun on you for self-defense as I typically would, thanks to their other asinine progressive Democrat policies. And at least for me, I could just Uber the rest of the time I was there, then leave. But imagine, like her, you live in one of these places and you have to try to continue to carry on with your daily life. It is morally wrong to let criminals and homeless people take over cities like this. And it isn't racist or cruel or wrong to speak out about this. They have completely lost the plot when a woman who I thought was in their whole little victim brigade that they like wanted to try to empower and protect, right? When a woman is speaking up and saying, your policies are putting me in danger. They are making me unsafe. This has gone too far. And your response is, sit down and shut up, you racist bigot. Like, where do they get off? Ultimately, there is nothing kind or compassionate or even humanist about allowing criminals to run rampant or enabling homeless people, which many blue states do. I think the government should have very few laws and functions, but ensuring that law-abiding people are protected both in their property and in their personhood from delinquents and deviants who refuse to conduct themselves based on the laws of society is one of them. You cannot have a peaceful coexistence without that kind of enforcement. I absolutely believe in the criminal justice reforms I have laid out here. But what actually undermines our ability to get that kind of progress and truly help the people within our prisons and jails that are there unjustly are these kinds of asinine approaches to crime and to violence. When they act like this, you make it to where nobody wants to work with you to achieve anything when it comes to criminal justice reform, because they recognize that your end goals are unhinged, and they are unhinged. One of the reasons I became passionate about criminal justice reform is because I recognize that the way we currently have it structured, where we spend so much money, so many of our resources locking up people and going after them for things that either shouldn't be crimes at all, like choosing to put drugs in your own body, and the amount that we spend locking up innocent people because our system is shoddy and the people within it are not doing their due diligence, actually detracts from our ability to meaningfully go after and police and solve and prevent violent crime. The clearance rates are in the gutter for violent crime in this country. So yes, criminal justice reform, but then use those additional resources that you would save from those kinds of smart policies and apply them towards actually solving and preventing violent crime. And I do count property crimes within violent crime, right? It is violent to have somebody mess up your property or your business that you have worked for. That is something that is violent. I can't stand in places like California where you see them decriminalizing property crimes either. All right, guys, I hope you liked this episode. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop me a comment. I do try to read all of them. And if you want even more content from me, you can head over to TikTok or Instagram or Twitter and follow me there too.